As of August 1, 2025, the debate over the future of the U.S. Navy's F/A-XX sixth-generation fighter has become one of the most closely watched and contested issues in the U.S. defense modernization landscape. This carrier-based stealth fighter, intended to replace the F/A-18E F Super Hornet within the Navy's next-generation air wing, is at the center of a funding and strategy conflict between the Department of Defense and Congress. The outcome will have major implications not only for naval aviation, but also for the structure of the U.S. defense industrial base, force projection strategies, and air dominance through the mid-21st century. Earlier this year, the Department of Defense submitted its FY 2026 budget proposal, which drastically scaled back funding for the F/A-XX program. The Pentagon requested just $74 million for the program, barely enough to sustain minimal design and technology maturation efforts. This sharp reduction followed internal assessments that the U.S. industrial base cannot simultaneously support two full-scale sixth-generation fighter programs, one for the Air Force, the F-47, and one for the Navy, the F/A-XX, without significant delays, cost overruns, and supply chain risk. The department's prioritization of the F-47, which is currently progressing through engineering and manufacturing development, EMD, reflects a broader strategy to consolidate resources around a single sixth-generation lead platform in the near term. The F-47, being developed under the Air Force's Next Generation Air Dominance (NGAD) umbrella, is designed as a highly stealthy, networked, and optionally manned platform optimized for air superiority in contested environments. It integrates multiple advanced systems, including adaptive cycle engines, enhanced sensor fusion, modular open systems architecture, and high levels of artificial intelligence to support manned-unmanned teaming. Boeing has emerged as the lead contractor for the F-47, and development has been accelerated in response to peer competition and growing requirements in the Indo-Pacific region. By contrast, the F/A-XX was intended to provide a complementary naval solution to the F-47. While both platforms share similar sixth-generation attributes, such as stealth, sensor fusion, and high survivability, the Navy's requirements emphasize longer carrier-based endurance, maritime strike integration, and hardened electromagnetic capabilities suitable for shipborne environments. The Navy's goal was to introduce the F/A-XX in the early to mid-2030s, in time to begin phasing out legacy Super Hornets and supplementing F-35C squadrons aboard aircraft carriers. However, the Pentagon's recent decision to delay the F/A-XX has generated intense criticism from key lawmakers. The Senate Appropriations Committee responded by adding $1.4 billion back into the FY 2026 defense spending bill to preserve the program, aligning with the Navy's own internal unfunded priority list. This funding would allow the Navy to continue concept design, prototyping, and early-stage integration activities, avoiding a programmatic pause that could delay the aircraft by several years. The Senate's bipartisan action reflects a strong belief among lawmakers that allowing the F/A-XX to stagnate would risk future naval aviation superiority and cede critical timelines to competitors developing their own next-generation platforms. Congressional skepticism also stems from broader concerns about over-consolidation of air dominance capabilities. While defense officials argue that prioritizing the F-47 streamlines development and prevents industry bottlenecks, many in Congress believe the Navy and Air Force have distinct mission requirements that justify parallel next-generation fighter tracks. They point out that naval operations, particularly carrier-based strike packages, cannot be fully supported by platforms designed exclusively for land-based operations, especially in highly contested maritime environments where electromagnetic interference, logistical endurance, and launch recovery constraints demand different design considerations. Within the defense industry, the F/A-XX has already gone through multiple competitive review cycles. Boeing and Northrop Grumman remain the final two competitors after Lockheed Martin was removed from the F/A-XX competition earlier this year. Boeing, already heavily engaged in the F-47 program, may face challenges in managing parallel development pipelines, while Northrop Grumman is reportedly leveraging lessons learned from its earlier stealth programs and digital design capabilities to offer a carrier-optimized sixth-gen solution. The design specifics of both proposals remain classified, but defense officials have emphasized that F/A-XX will need to operate seamlessly within a future naval ecosystem dominated by distributed operations, manned-unmanned teaming, and persistent threat environments from near-peer adversaries. One of the underlying tensions is that the Navy's existing fleet structure cannot absorb extended delays. The F/A-18E F Super Hornets, currently the backbone of carrier air wings, are approaching the end of their upgradable service lives, even with Block 3 enhancements. The Navy has already signaled that without a sixth-generation follow-on, its future air wing will face significant shortfalls in capability and survivability by the mid-2030s. The F-35C, while providing advanced stealth and sensor capabilities, was never designed to completely replace all Super Hornet roles. Without F/A-XX, the Navy risks entering the 2030s without a true air superiority platform capable of holding pace with emerging global threats. At the strategic level, this debate reflects a larger conversation about risk acceptance and technological pacing. The Department of Defense has acknowledged that even with the F-47 moving forward, the risks of capacity gaps remain, especially if development setbacks occur. Congress has voiced concerns that relying too heavily on a single next-generation program increases vulnerability, especially given the uncertain timelines and high complexity associated with sixth-generation technology integration. Lawmakers advocating for continued F/A-XX development argue that maintaining two distinct but interoperable sixth-gen platforms enhances operational flexibility, builds resilience into the force structure, and sustains critical industrial capability across multiple design teams and supply chains. The final outcome is now tied to the legislative reconciliation process. The House and Senate versions of the defense budget differ significantly in their treatment of Navy aviation, and conference negotiations over the coming months will determine whether the Senate's $1.4 billion for F/A-XX is retained. If a compromise is reached and signed into law by the President, the Navy would be authorized to continue development and avoid a costly multi-year delay. On the other hand, if the funding is reduced or removed in the final legislation, the program could be deferred indefinitely, effectively freezing carrier-based sixth-generation modernization for the foreseeable future. Both the F-47 and F/A-XX programs remain central to how the United States plans to preserve its air dominance in the coming decades. The F-47 is advancing steadily under strong executive and industrial backing, while the F/A-X's future remains uncertain, caught between budgetary constraint and strategic necessity. The decisions made in this budget cycle will define not only the technological direction of U.S. air power, but also the balance of carrier-based versus land-based aviation as the operational environment evolves into the 2030s and beyond.